Number 10. Geist. Geist actually made his first appearance in Wolverine. He first shows up in Wolverine's 1989 series in issue 17. There he is working for the dictator Felix Caradid, who is the ruler of Tierra Verde. But we also learn of Geist's origins in this story, and his long history of villainy. Geist is Dr. Nikolaus Geist, a scientist who initially worked alongside Germany during World War II, even acting as the Führer's advisor for a time, giving him advice on what to do with his prisoners, how to treat them, and where to keep them. I think you know what I'm talking about here. Geist proved that he was truly one of the most vile villains of Wolverine's. Geist turned himself into a cyborg, though not a particularly strong one. He's kind of an old man cyborg. He was more concerned with longevity in his life than any kind of strength. And where his power truly shines is within his mind. Being brilliant, he managed to work his way into the company of powerful people, convincing them to let him act as their advisor or their chief scientist. Geist was also behind the unleashing of another seemingly unstoppable villain of the time, SPORE. SPORE was pretty crazy, to be honest. Number 9. Cyber. Weirdly, Geist is not the only cyborg enemy of Wolverine. In fact, he kind of has a few of those. I'm actually surprised none of them ever reached out and attempted to start a team all their own, like the cyborg Wolverine enemy team dedicated to being cyborgs and taking down Wolverine. Sadly, it might be a little too late now, as quite a few of the cyborg-based enemies that I'm thinking of at least have been seemingly perma-killed. However, Cyber, despite being killed more than once, is actually not one of those. He is currently alive in the comics and was last spotted in 2018 in a Ben Reilly comic, surprisingly. Cyber initially was introduced as a Wolverine villain. His first form was fairly unstoppable and possessed powers similar to Wolverine, including retractable claws and a healing factor, because Wolverine villain. But it should be noted, every time he's come back he's been like a little bit different in terms of what his power set is. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about more amazingly powerful Wolverine villains, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. And maybe comment below, and maybe share, why not? Number 8. Mystique. Mystique is an iconic villain for Wolverine, starting out as his enemy way back in the times of the Wild West, just as that period in history was actually ending, circa 1921. The two met for the first time way back then, and although Logan initially decided to trust Raven, she would inevitably end up stabbing him in the back. Something Wolverine would not forget over the years whenever he ran into her again. Mystique isn't a super powerful character in terms of who can hit the hardest, but she is powerful in the sense that she is a master deceiver and manipulator. She has tricked some of the most cunning and brilliant heroes in comics into doing exactly what she wants. She is also super mysterious. We don't actually really even know how old she is, and there are still lots of gaps when it comes to her backstory. Mystique is a shapeshifter who can transform into other humanoid beings, as well as more abstract things sometimes, depending on who's writing her. She can also disguise herself in any kind of garb she so chooses, as often the clothing we see her in is also created via her shapeshifting. Mystique can also alter her vocal cords to allow her to match anyone that she chooses to impersonate, and can even alter her form to match their retina and their fingerprints exactly. Hence why she's such a dangerous enemy to have. Master Infiltrator.
Number 7. Spiral. Ricochet Rita was once a professional stunt performer. She became friends with a guy named Longshot who was actually from, well, not Earth, he was from Mojoverse. She was then attacked by this insane future version of herself named Spiral. Now thankfully she was able to defeat Spiral, but after that she followed her heart. She went back to the dimension with Longshot. She went back to the Mojoverse. And then when they got there, they were both captured by Mojo himself. And Longshot's mind was wiped. He forgot Rita entirely. And as for Rita, well, things get actually a lot worse and more confusing. Mojo got his scientist Ares to modify her mentally and physically, so now she's got 6 arms, he turned her hair gray, and she could also see other dimensions, so a bit of an upgrade, that's cool. She was a twisted version of Mojo in a way, and she was trained in the dark arts of magic and body modification. So this future version of her was, well, it was just that. It was a dark future of what ended up happening. Nice little time loop there. Spiral also appears in the X-Men animated series, and she makes Wolverine's life hell in Volume 2, Issue 51. I'd love to see Spiral fight 6-armed Spider-Man. I wonder who would win that one.
Number 6. Omega Red. I actually feel pretty bad putting Arcady lower on this list. I think he's a pretty powerful and badass villain all in all, but at the end of the day he can kind of be manipulated by others pretty easily, which is what makes him a little bit weaker to me in terms of where I wanted to rank him here. He only recently got his carbonadium synthesizer back after years of being separated from it. Generally, others wielding this important device have made him their puppet for as long as they possess it, hence why it's one of his weaknesses. The latest person to make Omega Red their loyal servant was Dracula, who was using Red to spy on Krakoa. Fortunately, Arcady managed to get the synthesizer back, which means we might actually get to see more of Omega Red's full potential in the future. Omega Red is pretty crazy powerful while in full control of himself. He can emit death spores, which are lethal and actually kill most people who come near them. He's also an energy vampire, draining others' life force in order to keep himself alive. This can also bolster Omega Red or be a weakness depending on the circumstance. And like many of Wolverine's most deadly villains, he's also a super skilled fighter with a healing factor. Pretty much everyone gets a healing factor. You kinda need it if you're going up against Wolverine and you want to stand a chance.
Number 5. Charlie Chainsaw. This guy is literally 2 chains. Whenever I see that one card from Cards Against Humanity, the one that says chainsaws for hands, I always laugh because that's such a terrible situation to be in. I'm always like, imagine this dude, imagine him as a villain, we'd be doomed. Well, lo and behold, he's a villain, and we're doomed. He first appeared in Wolverine Weapon X issue 7. He was the guy wandering around without hands, actually, at this point. The staff was following him in the hallways, asking for Charlie to come back. He was like, what do? I don't have hands, I can't open doors, help. And then 6 pages later, the surgery is complete. Charlie Chainsaw is born. Charlie remained loyal to Rotwell until Logan ripped through those chainsaws. And that sounds like a pretty stressful life. He's for sure a chain smoker.
Number 4. Sabretooth. Victor Creed might not be an insanely powerful villain in comparison to some of the others on this list, but when it comes to tormenting Wolverine, he's probably one of the best that there is. Not only does Victor possess a similar power set, but he also is generally the one who comes out on top whenever he ends up in a brawl with Wolverine, which is pretty often, especially considering Sabretooth has a habit of visiting Wolverine on his birthday. In fact, in his newly announced series, I'm really hoping Victor still gets that chance to keep up appearances, because he's a great antagonist for Wolverine, and I kinda love that weird tradition of the smackdown on Wolverine's birthday. Not only is Sabretooth bested Wolverine physically, but he's also got a sharp wit, and even once devised a plot to hurt Wolverine by pitting him against his son, forcing Logan to drown his son in a puddle in the end to stop him, which ends up somehow being even more heartbreaking than you'd think. Especially considering that son was Daken, and as I said, Daken has been kind of out to kill his dad in the past, so you wouldn't think that would make you sad, but it did. It was pretty sad.
Number 3. Mr. X. Making his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 2, issue 159, Mr. X is the only name given about this guy, and he was kind of obsessed with death growing up. He saw a woman get hit by a car at a young age, and then trauma ensued. And then at the same time, it unlocked his mutant ability, being that of telepathy. He trained in combat with numerous teachers, where he would get so good that he would then just take them out afterwards. He would learn from them and then kill them. Guy's ruthless. He was obsessed with violence, so when he heard about Wolverine, he was like, oh, I have to fight this guy, let's do it. Mr. X wanted to be the best, and he did beat Logan in their first encounter. Later on, however, in issue 168 during the annual Bloodsport tournament in Madripoor, Mr. X was beating everybody along the way. He even beat Taskmaster at some point. How crazy is that? That telepathy sure does come in handy. He knew which hits were coming and when. Pretty unfair, but also pretty cool, I have to admit.
Number 2. Gorgon. Gorgon is an impressive fighter, as we saw in the previous X-Men series in 2019. In issue number 4, Gorgon is revealed to be a member of the security detail that Xavier, Magneto, and Apocalypse take with them while attending a diplomatic dinner with the other world leaders. Gorgon is asked to hand over his swords at the security clearance gate, as they are deemed too overt as far as permitted security weapons go. But Gorgon actually refuses, and goes to respond with, "The problem is that you look at me and you think the blade is the weapon." And later he proves that to be very true. The crazy thing about this issue is that Gorgon doesn't even resort to using his powers at all in the issue, and yet he takes out countless enemies just with his blades and skills alone. His mutant ability is that he turns any who make eye contact with him into stone, hence his name, Gorgon. However, in this issue, all he uses are his 2 blades and his insane fighting skills to defeat multiple enemies. I say defeat because remember, this is Krakoa, so no killing allowed. Maiming through dismemberment of limbs, however, that is permissible, as we see in that issue. Number 1. OGUN. OGUN was pretty powerful. He was a warrior who Wolverine met in China. He would end up becoming Wolverine's teacher and mentor for years. The two became close enough that Wolverine actually thought of OGUN as a father figure. However, one night when the two were attacked, it was revealed that OGUN had learned how to cheat death, effectively becoming immortal. After this incident, he became more obsessed with immortality, focusing solely on perfecting his technique. Perfection to him was being able to leave his own body and take over the body of others, allowing him to gain more power and in essence remain eternally young. He planned to use this technique on Logan actually, but Logan left before OGUN could attempt it. Later, OGUN would temporarily possess Kitty Pryde, but be defeated by Wolverine. He was even at one point sent to Hell and still managed to return, so he's pretty unstoppable.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Dirtnap. No real name also, just goes by Dirtnap. So sick. Making his first few little steps in Wolverine Volume 2, issue 95, Dirtnap is a mutant that can absorb living beings and take their forms. The Kirby of the Marvel Universe, essentially. Now, he ran into Wolverine for the first time when Dirtnap absorbed a small child, and then right after he attempted to absorb Wolverine, seeing as Logan's healing factor would make that pretty exhausting, Dirtnap absorbed a rat, and then he fled the scene, instead of, absorbing a faster creature. Maybe one that could fly would be nice. So he started off as a mutant with his amazing ability, and now he's forever a rat like Peter Pettigrew. A rat with a red smiley face. Just, ugh, how comforting is that? Number 9, ROUGHOUSE. Just that name alone, you know you're in for a little bit of trouble. He first appeared in Wolverine Volume 2, issue 4. It was speculated that ROUGHOUSE was from Asgard. He has mythological origins, but still he was classified as a mutant. He's a descendant from the Asgardian native rock trolls, so he could be a god, he could be a troll, he could be a giant, who knows. Either way, he's trouble. His appearance isn't just a style choice also. He actually let the hair grow out to hide all the scars from his horrible father that he'd left behind. In Wolverine Volume 2, issue 18, Wolverine had to go head to head with the mythical man, and at this point, Geistmen gave Roadhouse experimental narcotics, and it just drove him insane, as most experimental narcotics do. So when Wolverine fought him, he was kind of taking it easy on him in a way, seeing as he was out of it, he was kind of loopy. Wolverine came face to face with ROUGHOUSE after the adamantium was stripped from his skeleton, and Logan actually lost this fight. He got knocked out, and then ROUGHOUSE took him back to his hideout, where he and BLOODSCREAM tortured Wolverine for days. He's an Asgardian descendant, so ROUGHOUSE has super speed, super strength, all the usual super stuff, but like Logan, ROUGHOUSE too inherited the healing factor. He's been referred to as the weaker Wolverine despite his mythical background. Number 8, BLOODSCREAM. Another villain that helped ROUGHOUSE with the torture of Wolverine was BLOODSCREAM. These names are so violent, oh my god. So BLOODSCREAM entered comics in issue 4 of Wolverine Volume 2. He was originally a surgeon named Zachariah Ravenscraft, and he would travel with Sir Francis Drake back in the 17th century. So he's a little bit old. What's his secret to everlasting life? Well, let me tell you. Canadian natives injured the doctor during a scuffle, and then he was forced to meet a healer named Dagu to treat him. Dagu used an eldritch spell to keep him in between life and death, resulting in this vampire hybrid of a man. Now the name BLOODSCREAM is making more sense now, I bet. Immortal and always hungry, BLOODSCREAM demands Dagu to set him back to doctor mode. Reverse this curse, please and thank you, sir. Now in order to do so, he needed the blood of another immortal. BLOODSCREAM met Wolverine for the first time in World War II, and that's when he first thought that the mutant was immortal. So him and ROUGHOUSE often paired up to attempt to take him down numerous times.
Number 7, Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike is Yuriko Oyama, the daughter of Kenji Oyama, the man who invented the adamantium bonding process. So you can imagine how personal this feud is. Despite the fact that Kenji mistreated his daughter, Yuriko, after her father's death, would feel differently about him and actually ended up deciding to follow in his footsteps and continue his research. She also aimed to track down the one he blamed for stealing his life's work, Wolverine. Of course, Logan hadn't actually stolen the work, but he was the subject it had been used on to bond his bones with adamantium. Initially, she pursued him because she wanted his skeleton so that she could actually study it in an effort to continue her father's work and relearn the process that he had lost when his research was stolen. Lady Deathstrike would go on to become a dangerous and powerful criminal, upgrading her body and turning herself into a cyborg. She is known for her retractable fingernails, which are razor sharp and laced with adamantium, making them super strong and able to cut through most metals and most materials in general.
Number 6, Dr. Rot. Nice. That name is pretty disgusting right off the top. Now his real name is a little more tame. His name's Algernon Rotwell. He was sent to Dunwich Sanatorium because he was mad, but he wasn't superpowered by any means, just a little bit insane. While he was in there, he was able to start a riot and take control, which led him to harvesting the employees' brains. So he made this god brain machine, and yes, it's as gross as you would imagine. Check it out. Squishy. Imagine the smell. So he captured Logan, made him lose his memory, tortured him, and then claimed the only way to get better is just to embrace and let go of all that anger and aggression. Just let it out. They wanted him to let it out and to hurt people. So he found out these code phrases that were put in from Weapon X, so he made Logan do all these brutal attacks, and he wasn't even sure if he was awake or not. It was wild. It was a bad time. Dr. Rot was honestly pretty badass for a guy who has no powers. He created the flesh puppets using Logan's brain tissue. Also, yeah, flesh puppets. That's a nice way to say zombies.
Number 5. Daken. Akihiro is more of an ally of Wolverine's currently in the comics. On Krakoa, it seems everyone is given that second chance at family that they've always yearned for, Daken and Logan included. I really love the Wolverine fam actually. They're probably one of my favorite families over on Krakoa right now. But before Akihiro was on Wolverine's side and helping to defend and potentially protect him against other villains, like Omega Red actually, alongside the rest of the members of the family, he was actually attempting to kill his dad, if you can believe that, multiple times. Daken, being the almost naturally born son of Itsu and Logan, has powers very similar to his father. He possesses a healing factor and even bone claws, but come out of his wrists. He also ages a lot more slowly, but he also has the added ability of manipulating others' pheromones, allowing him to control or influence them. He's also really good at fighting. Really good.
Number 4. Spore. Making his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 21, Spore is a living bioweapon created from the Deviants. This was way back when they were at war with the Eternals in the prehistoric era. So Spore consumed everything in its path, be it humans, deviants, and even Eternals. He targeted the Celestials, so they naturally had to destroy him during the second host. But in the next issue, Spore came back to life. Turns out when he was liquefied, he was absorbed into all that soil underneath him. So when that land became a controlled area for Felix Guillermo Caridad to grow his stuff, his bad stuff that I can't say, some of those narcotics that he was using was infused with Spore. So Felix became the next Spore, and it's an awful conundrum. Number 5. Deathwatch. First entering comics in Ghost Rider Volume 3, Issue 1, Deathwatch is a demon. How fun is that? But he poses as a crime boss named Stephen Lawrence, so okay, not totally a demon. One of his first things that he did actually was order his Deathspawn ninjas to steal a large amount of biotoxin and attack New York. So right off the bat, he is a horrible villain. He gets his energy from pain and death, and he can connect to you mentally with just one touch. So you don't want to be anywhere near him. Doesn't feel too good. During Marvel Comics Presents issue 71, he got himself on Logan's death list, right after Wolverine bumped into his men in Madripoor. He carries a katana with him and firearms, and if there's one guy to absorb pain and death from, well, Wolverine's got quite a bit to give. Number 2. Razor Fist. After getting his arms cut off, master martial artist Douglas Scott got a pretty shiny upgrade instead of those hands. He worked alongside his brother William Scott, and after Shang-Chi defeated both the mercenaries, Razor Fist started to work with the crime lord Roche in Madripoor. His job was to assassinate Wolverine, which, okay, easy peasy, sure, sounds great. Now the first fight, Wolverine actually did lose. Razor Fist shucked him off of a cliff. Nice. Now the next encounter, Razor Fist got what was coming. He tried to take on Hawkeye as well at one point. He was trying to cut off his right arm for a reward. But Razor Fist isn't superpowered. He's just a guy with blades for hands. I mean, who would you rather fight, honestly? Razor Fist or Chainsaw Charlie? I feel like Charlie would be better because you'd hear him. He's loud at least, so you have like a warning. I don't know. Both are pretty terrifying. Both are equally as terrifying. And finally, number 1. Romulus. That guy I mentioned earlier in this list. Let's talk about him. He made his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 3, Issue 55. Romulus claims to have been born in prehistoric times, born as one of the Lupine, these feral humans that evolved from canines rather than apes. But in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 312, it's exposed that his origins are all just a fib, and the bones that Romulus planted at the elephant graveyard were just distractions. Nothing to do with his past or anything like that. He does have powers. Like Wolverine, his regenerative healing factor saves the day pretty often. Later on, he comes to fight Wolverine equipped. He has these black gloves that have 4 blades attached. 3 of them similar to Logan's adamantium claws, but he also has a 4th one, and it's like thumbs almost. They can take quite the beating from Logan's claws being adamantium as well. But when it comes to Thumb Wars, Romulus wins, that's it. He's got the other one. He can thumb war anyone. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Orb. He made his first appearance in Ghost Rider Volume 6, Issue 26. The Orb is, well, yeah, he's a guy with an eyeball for a head. Cool, that's a notable feature, I'd say. Well, he was born like that. His parents abandoned him at an early age because of it. Sad stuff. Now, the eye can do much more than freak people out and make squishy noises. The eye can blast people with a red energy beam, and he can walk on walls. So it's only fair that he's crossed paths with Spider-Man and Wolverine during this weird life. In Astonishing Spider-Man and Wolverine, the Orb has backup. He's got a group of robbers called Orblings, which I gotta say, it's a great name for a group. They're trying to get their hands on these rare jewels locked away in a bank. And as they're fighting each other, the three of them get transported across the timeline thanks to those, well, time diamonds. As if fighting an eyeball wasn't weird enough, this alternate timeline made the Orb even bigger and more powerful. He was well equipped to take on Peter and Logan. Number 9, the Iron Monk. Appearing only in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 108, the Iron Monk was an assassin sent by the Hand to take down Wolverine and Pale Flower. This happened right after the two interrupted the group's plans in Japan, so the Tokyo Metropolitan Police had them locked up. So all of a sudden, the Iron Monk teleports into these holding cells, attacks all the guards, rips off the door to Logan's holding cell, and this guy was laughing at Wolverine and Pale Flower when they were trying to attack. It was useless to try and attack this guy. Nothing was working against the Iron Monk's durability. That was his main thing. And then all of a sudden, Yohei appeared and gave Wolverine the honor sword of the clan Yoshida, a sword that was forged from meteorite iron by a demon. Yeah, sounds like it's gonna do the trick. And before we continue on with this epic part 2, if you wanna go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, honestly, it really helps our channel a lot. All you gotta do is go, and then that's it. Then we can bring you more content, you look brighter, maybe I'll get a haircut, who knows? Good things will happen if you click like, basically, or subscribe. Oh my God, if you hit subscribe. Number 8, Tiger Shark. Not a tiger shark, but Tiger Shark. Meet Todd Arliss. He made his first appearance in Submariner Issue 5. He was once a talented swimmer who took part in the Olympic Games, but after damaging his spinal cord saving a man, Todd was desperate to get back into the water. So he participated in an experiment performed by Dr. Lemuel Dorcas. He's a dork, sorry, I had to. That's where he had his DNA merged with Namor and a tiger shark. So obviously now we have a new supervillain. His personality changed as well as his abilities. He was initially a foe of Namor, of course, but in Wolverine Volume 2, Issue 19, Logan got a little wet and wild himself. Fighting underwater, turns out, was much harder. Wolverine gets his claws literally stuck in a reef at one point. Honestly, I felt like I was drowning while reading these 2 issues. A little stressful. Number 7, Cyber. Silas Burr made his first appearance in Marvel Comics Presents Issue 85. He was born in Canada over 100 years ago. They're all so old. What's going on? He was an agent for the Pinkerton National Detective Agency in 1912, but was charged with, 22 counts of murder and put on trial in Iowa. Not a great guy. And yes, he was guilty on all of those charges. He was about to be hanged, but Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth, was posing as a guard and helped Burr escape. After that, Burr was taken to the Canadian Army's training facility where he met Frederick Hudson, who was impressed by Burr because of how pushy and controlling he was for the men below him. So Hudson put Burr in command of the Devil's Brigade, which included Logan. So he was bossing Logan around. He was the one who pushed Logan non-stop to be made into this animal. So in Wolverine Origins, Romulus decided to give Burr a little upgrade in the form of adamantium, taking on this new fitting alias, Cyber. Number 6, Deathbird. Making her first appearance in Miss Marvel Issue 9, Kelsey Naramani was born the eldest child of the Magister Naramani. She was born heir of the Shi'ar Empire's throne. What luck, must be nice. She was born with bird-like features. She was born with uncontrollable rage, and she's even got a set of claws as well. Deathbird was once recruited to serve Apocalypse as the Horseman War. She's mainly an X-Men villain, but with such similar features, I figured this list and this part 2 would be a great time to bring her name up because she's a total badass. Number 3, Gorgon. Tommy Shishido made his first appearance in Wolverine Volume 3, Issue 20, and from birth, Tommy was a fast learner. At just 2 weeks old, he spoke a full sentence, and at 3 months old, he was walking around on his own. At age 1, reading and writing was part of his normal day, and at age 4, he was ranked one of the top 5 artists in modern Japan. And then come birthday number 13, he discovered he was a mutant. He had low-level telepathy, he could read minds from a short distance, but you don't want to have a staring contest with him at all, because if he locks eyes with you, you'll literally turn into stone. He remained blindfolded, relying on his telepathic abilities to carry him in battle, and it worked. He was actually pretty sick. The media dubbed him as the Gorgon, like the Medusa of our time. He He found the Hand Sanctuary and within a year became their high priest, where he ran the ninja clan. Number 4. Doombringer. Also known as the Walker Between Worlds, Doombringer appeared once and only once, despite his menacing name. Wolverine's Doombringer was released back in 1997. It's a story told from the Madripoor years where Logan is uncovering the mystery of an ancient Japanese tale about the Doombringer, which was currently on its way to destroy us all. Lovely. The story puts Wolverine and the Silver Samurai against a 5-alarm freak from hell, as Logan puts it. Now the fight itself is just a mess. It's just guts and blood everywhere. Even Wolverine thinks, okay, the only way I can win here is just survive. Just give the most amount of blood and then we're good. And that's basically how it ends. The Doombringer is massive, it's scaly, it has sharp claws. It's definitely not one of Wolverine's easy days, that's for sure.
Number 3, Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai is a master swordsman and a mutant. He is so confident in his abilities to beat Wolverine in battle that in issue number 1 of the 2020 Cable series, when Logan asks when the two are going to fight one another for sport and entertainment on Krakoa, Silver Samurai responds with, "Is it your intention to give everyone on the island a marker?" In reference to the fact that Wolverine basically just lost to young Cable, and suggesting that Logan himself would also lose to Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai is Kenichiro Harada. Ken's mutant abilities allow him to generate attack on field, which he can focus through anything that he pleases. Typically, he chooses to use this on his sword, which basically strengthens it, allowing him to cut through almost anything. And I mean almost anything. I don't think adamantium, but pretty much everything else.
Number 2, the Mongrels. Wolverine hooks up with many women over his long lifespan. I don't know how to put it lightly, but yeah, he has a lot of kids that run around. Sometimes those kids grow up and seek revenge on their mutant father, and the Mongrels are just that. The Mongrels are Logan's kids that grew up to become Shadowstalker, Fire Knives, Soft Fist, Gunhawk, and Cannonfoot. Okay, pretty sweet names. Pretty to the point names. They first appeared in Wolverine Volume 4 Issue 1, and their only goal was to ruin Logan's life. That's it. Just cause pain and suffering. So they joined the Red Right Hand, where they were trained to be used as literal weapons, hence those fun names. And then in Wolverine Volume 4 Issue 4, Gunhawk burned down a room filled with Wolverine's mementos and prized possessions over his long life. All this happened while Logan was literally in hell. So while he was down there melting, they were burning his stuff both on Earth as well. It's a lot of fire. Once Logan did get out of hell 9 issues later, he invaded the Red Right Hand's base where the Mongrels then attacked him. They didn't make it too far, but Logan did give them a chance to surrender peacefully, so you gotta give him that. Not bad for a guy who just escaped hell. We actually just did a list on our top 10 superheroes who beat the devil, so if this kind of stuff intrigues you, be sure to check that out once you're done here. And finally, number 1, Deadpool. Wolverine villains you won't believe exist? Well, okay, here's one for you. Before all those box office records, Ryan Reynolds played the Merc, well, without a mouth, back in 2009. X-Men Origins Wolverine was a train wreck. It was a horrible take on Wade Wilson. The film was made during the 2007 writer's strike, so it was just a mess from the get-go. I feel like now we can rip this movie apart because, you know, it's in the past. Logan's good, he had his great ending. Deadpool's now in the MCU after 2 successful R-rated movies, so he's good. It's cool. We can make fun of it now. At the beginning of this movie, it's kind of close. I mean, Wade is quick with the quips, and the action, although it's aged and cheesy, is still at least entertaining. That is until later on in the movie when he returns for a big showdown with Wolverine, and it's just not the guy we want. His mouth is sewn shut, it's not even close. Not the guy, just not the guy.
You guys, if you can take
Okay?
6
You're not
feet.
that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Okay.
Okay?
You?
Absolutely.
You're gonna get arrested for this?
Arrested for doing what?